China's strategy or relations with the other regional superpowers, especially Japan and Russian Federation? And also, why do China appear to be a risk taker when it comes to project and investment in Africa? I know they've only done it more than Western companies.
Well, with the second question, I think it's a really good question. I think China is, well, first of all, I think Chinese large companies, particularly oil and gas companies, take risks because they feel like they don't have any other option. They invest in risky environments because if you look around the globe, you're a big oil and gas company, and you want to invest in Saudi or liquid natural gas, Kuwait, or Mexico, relatively stable places. Either one is Russia, dominated by a state oil and gas company, or much of the important fields are already sewn up by Western multinationals or Asian multinationals. So you go to places that are recovering from conflict like Angola, or you go to places like Sudan or Burma where Western multinationals can't go because of sanctions, fear to go because of consumer boycotts, or are worried about going because of the high political risk. So I think to some extent they're taking whatever options are available to them. Those tend to be very risky. The first question, I think you have to differentiate China's relationship with Japan with China's relationship with all other countries, major superpowers. China's relationship with Japan is difficult and all wrapped around partly the legacy of the Second World War, how that legacy is interpreted and exploited since on both sides. But with other superpowers, I think that China has been pretty aggressive in trying to build relations with other regional powers. They're very interested in building relations with Brazil, South Africa, to some extent the idea that these major regional powers have similar interests in trade talks, in other international institutions. And they've been very aggressive in trying to promote that. I'm not sure that that's panned out that much, but they have been very aggressive in promoting that. And with Russia and China also have a pretty bad historical relationship going back to the middle of the Cold War. But China's been, I think, pretty effective at smoothing that over, though there's still obviously a lot of lingering anger. But the fact that China and Russia have increasingly held pretty decently sized joint military exercises suggests a much greater degree of confidence than it was in the past.
Yes. I used to be with the World Bank. My name's Huck. And from a World Bank point of view, it's much easier to do good projects in China than India, despite the fact that India has also had a very good economic progress. World Bank people are particularly impressed with the fact that China has reduced its extreme poverty level to below 10–11%. I was wondering if you had any comments on that. Why, perhaps you've done some comparisons of India and China, why China has been so much more successful in reducing poverty, in its infrastructure projects and that sort of thing than India.
I would have to take issue a little bit with the second point. China's been very effective in reducing extreme poverty, yes, but China's Gini coefficient is now the highest in East Asia. China has a vast, vast, vast gap between rich and poor now. And the government is very, very concerned about that. As you see, Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao spent quite a lot of time emphasizing what I guess in the U.S. we would call populist ideas, but they have many ideas for it, including in English, the idea of harmonious society. But just the idea that everyone in China needs to benefit from China's economic growth. So I think I would be a little cautious about saying that China has necessarily solved that. But there's no doubt that in general, China has been economic growth has been staggering. And partly the fact that they don't necessarily need consensus in places in the way India does to some extent initially help, I'm afraid. You see in West Bengal, controlled by theoretically a Marxist party, but just a social democratic party. For years and years and years, investors have wanted to invest in West Bengal, the state around Calcutta. It's been very difficult because there are a lot of groups, just like in the U.S., who are opposed to investments for different reasons. You don't want an investment in your backyard, you worry about the investment, etc. And India is a democracy. And the government of West Bengal has to take into consideration all of these protests, and so there's been very little investment in West Bengal. I think also, going back to the Chinese government has been quite within China, they've been quite aggressively focused on getting good cooperation with major international financial institutions. Whether they cooperate well with the World Bank and the IMF, now that China is becoming a major international player, I think is a different point.
Are China's activities accompanied by any kind of quote moral agenda, desire to change any of the society? Do you think that they're just comfortable cozying up to Myanmar's generals and will accept whatever they're finding without wanting to change the society as long as it benefits China economically?